Voss stepped off the shuttle onto the surface of Zyphara 9, a planet known across the galaxy for its dangerous wildlife and strange, uncharted landscapes. The air was thick with the scent of alien vegetation, sharp and sweet at the same time. The soil beneath her boots was soft and springy, moving almost like it had a rhythm of its own. She paused for a moment, letting her eyes adjust to the bright purple light that filtered through the planet's twin suns. She carried no armor, no weapons, nothing that could provide her physical protection. Yet, somehow, she felt entirely at ease. The shuttle crew had been nervous. Zyphara 9 was not a place for unprepared travelers. Predators in this world could sense fear, aggression, and even hesitation. They moved silently through the dense forests and crystalline plains, watching from shadows and treetops, rarely revealing themselves to outsiders. Most explorers wore full armor suits, with energy shields and drones to protect them. Humans rarely lasted more than a few hours outside the controlled zones, but Alara walked without any of it. She trusted her instincts, her experience, and, more than anything, her understanding of how life moved. From a distance, shapes stirred among the tall, iridescent ferns. Long, sinewy creatures with multiple limbs observed her silently. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light of Zyphara 9's twin suns, and they tilted their heads in unison, as if acknowledging her presence. They did not step closer, nor did they retreat. They simply watched, curious. Alara slowed her pace and adjusted her breathing. She had spent years studying alien ecosystems, learning to read signs, subtle gestures, and sounds that indicated the presence of predators. Here on this alien planet, every step mattered. The creatures of Zyphara 9 did not attack without reason, but they would never hesitate to protect their territory. Alara understood that her survival depended not on weapons or armor, but on observation and understanding. She crouched low to examine a cluster of plants that emitted faint, rhythmic pulses of light. It was a phenomenon she had read about in old research reports, but never seen in person. The light seemed to react to the air around it, shifting in intensity as she moved. She extended a hand slowly, letting her fingers hover above one of the glowing stalks. The plant did not recoil or retreat. It remained calm, its pulse steady. That small moment of connection, though subtle, reminded her of why humans had survived across so many worlds. It was not brute strength that defined them, but their curiosity, patience, and willingness to adapt. As she continued deeper into the forest, she began to notice the subtle signs of the predator's attention. Branches bent slightly without wind, leaves shimmered as if brushed by invisible hands, and shadows shifted faster than they should have. Each predator had a rhythm, a way of moving that was unlike any human or machine. They were intelligent, cautious, and endlessly patient. Alara felt no fear. Instead, she felt a strange sense of recognition, as if the creature somehow understood her presence. Hours passed, and the landscape changed. The dense forest gave way to wide plains covered in tall, crystalline formations that refracted light in dazzling patterns. Here the ground was firmer, and the air carried a subtle vibration, almost like a heartbeat that pulsed through the soil itself. Alara walked carefully, listening with every sense she had. Her training taught her that this world was alive in ways most humans could never comprehend. Every movement mattered. Every sound carried information. Among the crystals, she caught the first glimpse of a Zypharan predator up close. It was massive, with sleek, reflective skin and limbs that moved with a grace that defied its size. Its eyes, wide and intelligent, met hers for a brief moment. There was no threat in its gaze, only acknowledgement. It tilted its head and then turned, disappearing among the crystalline towers as if guiding her forward. Alara paused and smiled to herself. She had read that some animals could recognize intelligence in humans, but experiencing it was different. It was subtle, almost spiritual. Night fell quickly on Zyphara 9, though the twin suns left a faint glow on the horizon. Elara set up a small camp near the base of one of the largest crystals. She used minimal equipment, a lightweight tent, a solar-powered heating pad, and a water purifier. She did not need more than that. She knew that any sign of aggression or weakness would make her vulnerable. Yet, as she prepared for the night, she felt a presence, silent, observing, patient. Somewhere in the darkness, eyes glowed back at her. She sat quietly, listening to the rhythm of the planet. The plants emitted faint pulses, the wind carried soft vibrations, and the predators moved like shadows among the trees and crystals. Elara closed her eyes and focused on her breathing. She was part of this world now, even if only for a brief moment. She was learning its language, the subtle cues that indicated danger, curiosity, or recognition. Every creature she had seen so far had acknowledged her in some way, as if they recognized something unique about humans, something that went beyond strength or aggression. The night passed without incident. In the morning, she woke to a strange sight. A small pack of predators had gathered at the edge of her camp, observing her from a distance. They did not approach, but neither did they hide. Their movements were synchronized, almost ceremonial. Elara understood that she was being tested, not threatened. She smiled and stood slowly, keeping her movements deliberate and calm. She did not reach for anything, did not make sudden gestures, and did not speak. She simply existed among them, fully aware and fully present. The predators shifted, moving slightly closer, then pausing. It was a dance of recognition, subtle and silent. Elara felt a thrill of understanding. Here, on a planet where humans were considered fragile and easily outmatched, she had found a connection. Not through weapons, armor, or force, but through awareness, patience, and respect. Humans had survived on countless worlds, often against impossible odds, because they could adapt. This was another example of that ability, a reminder that intelligence and empathy could be more powerful than strength. By midday, she began exploring the nearby crystalline grove. The formations were taller here, some reaching hundreds of feet into the sky, their surfaces reflecting light like mirrors. As she walked among them, she realized the grove itself was alive. Vibrations traveled through the crystals, carrying subtle signals that even the Zepharan predators seemed to interpret. Every step required attention. Every gesture had meaning. She moved carefully, observing how the predators navigated the same terrain, learning from their movements. It was then that she noticed something remarkable. A small predator approached her, moving with caution but no fear. Its head tilted as it studied her, and for the first time she saw what could only be called curiosity in its gaze. She mirrored its movements, tilting her head and slowly lowering herself. The creature paused, then extended a limb toward her, not in aggression, but in interaction. She reached out lightly, letting her fingers hover above its skin. There was no contact, yet a silent understanding passed between them. Elara realized that the story she would later tell would not be about battles or survival in the traditional sense. It would be about recognition, connection, and the unique human ability to navigate a world without aggression. Here, on Zyphara 9, she was learning to communicate without words, to earn respect without force, and to survive not by dominating but by understanding. It was a lesson that would resonate far beyond this planet, a testament to the adaptability and ingenuity of humanity. As she made her way back to camp that evening, she noticed that the predators followed at a distance, still observing but never threatening. She felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced in any alien world before. It was a silent acknowledgement. Humans could be recognized not for their strength, not for their weapons, but for their awareness, their presence, and their ability to move through the world with intention. Elara settled into her tent, watching the crystalline formations shimmer in the light of Zyphara 9's twin moons. She knew the journey ahead would be difficult. The planet had challenges yet unseen, and the predators were both guides and judges. But for the first time, she felt truly connected to this world. She had arrived as an outsider, unarmed and vulnerable, yet she had earned a place among creatures who could have easily overpowered her. That recognition, silent and subtle, was a victory of a kind no weapon could achieve. And in that moment, Alara Voss understood something fundamental about humanity. It was not their armor, their ships, or their weapons that made them capable of surviving across the galaxy. It was their ability to observe, adapt, and communicate in ways no other species could. On Zyphara, 9 among predators that could detect fear in a heartbeat, she had proven it. She was human, unarmored, silent, and yet fully alive, and the world had recognized her for it. Alara woke before dawn, the light from Zyphara 9's twin suns, still a faint glow on the horizon. The crystalline grove shimmered in soft purple and blue hues, casting long reflections across the ground. The predators she had noticed the previous day were already moving through the forest, their limbs gliding silently over the uneven terrain. They did not acknowledge her immediately, but she could feel their awareness. Every movement, every subtle shift in the air was being noted. Humans, she thought, were rare in this part of the galaxy, and yet she sensed that the creatures somehow knew she was different. Not weak, not aggressive, but observant and patient. She stretched lightly and packed her minimal gear, taking care not to disturb the subtle ecosystem around her. A wrong step here could create vibrations that would ripple through the crystal formations, alerting every nearby creature. Alara moved deliberately, listening to the soft hum of energy that traveled through the grove. It was not a sound in the conventional sense, more like a subtle pulse that could be felt through the ground and the air. She knelt to examine the crystals close to her camp. Some of them emitted tiny sparks of light when touched by her fingers, though she did so carefully, respecting the life around her. The predators had begun their daily routines. They moved with purpose, circling, watching, sometimes pausing to sniff the air or tilt their heads in ways that communicated silently to one another. Alara observed them from a safe distance, taking mental notes. She had spent years studying alien wildlife, but these creatures were unlike anything she had ever encountered. They were intelligent, cautious, and aware of her presence. They were not just predators in the conventional sense. They were guardians of the grove, keepers of a rhythm she was only beginning to understand. Alara decided to follow the patterns of the creatures rather than force her way through the environment. She mimicked their movements subtly, bending her posture when they lowered theirs, stepping lightly when they moved, pausing when they paused. At first, the creatures kept their distance, observing her with quiet suspicion, but as the hours passed, some moved closer, testing her reactions. One small predator approached cautiously, circling her, tilting its head, and then pausing to study her hands. Alara extended her own hands slowly, palms open and low. The creature hesitated, then mirrored her gesture, a delicate dance of recognition and understanding. She smiled to herself. Humans had survived countless challenges not because they could overpower their surroundings, but because they could observe, learn, and adapt. She realized that was exactly what she was doing here. Every small interaction with the predators, every careful step through the grove, was a test of her awareness and patience. And the creatures were responding, acknowledging her not with aggression but with cautious curiosity. By midday, the sunlight filtered through the crystalline formations in streaks of soft lavender and gold. Alara had mapped a portion of the grove and noticed how the energy pulses interacted with the predators. When they moved in synchrony, the crystals reacted, sending tiny ripples of light across their surfaces. She realized the grove itself was alive in a way that extended beyond the flora and fauna. It responded to intent, to calm presence, to awareness. A wrong move could send vibrations through the crystal lattice, causing minor disruptions that the predators would immediately detect. She understood now that the grove and its guardians were connected, a single system of observation and response, and she was learning to become part of it. She stopped near a large crystal that towered over her, its surface smooth and reflective. Leaning against it lightly, she watched as a pair of predators approached, moving carefully and silently. They circled her, observing, testing. She mirrored their movements exactly, lowering her body, tilting her head, pausing at the same time they did. The creatures responded, stepping closer, their cautious curiosity growing into a tentative trust. Alara extended a hand slowly, hovering near one of them without making contact. The predator responded with a gentle nod of its head. It was a moment of mutual acknowledgement, a human and an alien recognizing one another's presence without threat, without dominance, only awareness and respect. Alara spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the grove, following the subtle cues of the predators. She noticed small creatures darting between the crystals, feeding on the energy pulses, and she observed the delicate balance of life in the ecosystem. She realized that Sci-fi 9 had survived this long because its creatures were not just strong, they were intelligent, responsive, and attuned to one another. Humans shared a similar trait, she thought, which explained why she could move among these predators without provoking fear or aggression. It was a shared ability to understand, adapt, and respect life. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the grove, Alara began preparing for another night outside. She set up a small, lightweight camp near a grouping of smaller crystals, careful not to disturb the environment. The predators were nearby, their forms moving among the shadows like silent sentinels. She could feel their attention, a quiet observation that reminded her of the fine balance she had to maintain. Humans survived because they paid attention, because they were adaptable and patient. Here on Sci-fi 9, those same traits were saving her in a world where most would have failed. Night fell, and the grove glowed faintly with the energy pulses of the crystals. The predators remained close but not threatening, circling her camp and occasionally pausing to observe. Alara lay in her small tent, listening to the rhythms of the planet. She felt a deep connection to the environment and the creatures around her. It was not just survival she was practicing. It was communication, understanding, and coexistence. She thought of humanity and how often they relied on weapons, armor, and force. Here, she realized, the greatest power was awareness, empathy, and intelligence. The next morning, she woke to find a new pattern among the predators. Several had gathered in a loose formation, moving with a purpose she did not yet understand. She observed them carefully, noting how they communicated silently, shifting positions, and responding to the slightest gestures from one another. It was as if they were guiding her, testing her ability to read signals and respond appropriately. Alara smiled, understanding that this was the next stage of her journey. She was being invited into their world, not as a threat, but as a participant. She followed the pack slowly, keeping her movements deliberate and mindful. The predators led her through dense areas of the forest where the crystals were smaller but no less significant. The energy pulses were stronger here, more vibrant and responsive. She noticed that when she mirrored the predator's steps and pauses, the pulses intensified slightly, creating a soft glow around her. She realized that the grove was reacting not just to the creatures, but to her awareness and alignment with their movements. She felt a thrill of discovery. Humans could influence the environment not by force, but by presence, by understanding, by adapting. Hours passed as she followed the predators deeper into the grove. She observed how they communicated through subtle gestures, tilts of the head, positioning of limbs, slight changes in speed, and she mirrored them with care. It was exhausting work, requiring complete focus and awareness, yet it was exhilarating. Humans had always survived by observing patterns and responding intelligently. And here, in an alien world, she was proving that once again. By afternoon, they reached a part of the grove she had not seen before. The crystals were taller and more intricate, forming natural corridors that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. The energy pulses here were strong and steady, resonating in harmony with the predator's movements. Alara stepped carefully, matching their pace and posture, feeling the rhythm of the grove as if it were an extension of her own body. The predators paused frequently, testing her awareness, and she responded with patience and precision. Each movement was deliberate, each pause meaningful. For the first time, she felt a sense of true understanding with the creatures around her. They were no longer merely observers. They were her guides and her companions. She realized that humans had a unique ability. They could adapt to complex systems, learn their rhythms, and interact in ways no other species could. Sci-Fi, Nine's predators were intelligent, yes, but humans had something they did not: the ability to reflect, observe, and align with life itself. As night fell, Elara set up camp again, this time with the predators forming a loose circle around her. She did not feel fear or vulnerability. Instead, she felt trust and recognition. She had entered this alien world as an outsider, unarmed and unprotected, yet she had earned a place among its most intelligent creatures through observation, patience, and understanding. It was a lesson about humanity. Strength alone was not enough. Awareness, empathy, and adaptability could achieve what brute force never could. Elara lay beneath the glowing crystals, watching the pattern shift and pulse in response to the movements of the predators. She understood that her journey was only beginning. The grove and its guardians had more to teach her, and she was ready to learn. Humans had survived in countless worlds by relying on intelligence and adaptability. And here, in Zifara, Nine's crystalline forest, those same qualities were guiding her through a world that could have destroyed anyone, less patient, less observant, less human. The morning sun rose slowly over the crystalline forest, casting long beams of violet and gold across the grove. Elara woke before the first light fully touched the ground, feeling the soft vibrations through the crystals beneath her. The predators that had guided her the previous days were already in motion, moving with the same silent precision she had begun to mirror. They were not aggressive, not threatening, yet their presence carried a weight of intelligence and expectation. She understood now that this was more than observation. It was a test of her ability to understand, to adapt, and to align herself with the rhythm of Zifara 9. Elara packed her minimal gear and moved quietly among the towering crystals. She noticed subtle changes in the energy pulses, slight differences in brightness and speed depending on her position and the predator's movements. It was as though the grove itself was alive, reacting to every intention, every hesitation, every step. She had learned to move in harmony with it, to anticipate the signals from both the environment and the creatures she had come to respect. Today, however, she sensed something different. The patterns were more complex, the predators more deliberate in their testing. It was the next stage of the challenge, the part that would prove if she could truly move as one with this world. The path ahead was a corridor formed by the largest crystals she had yet encountered. Each one towered like a sentinel, their surfaces reflecting light in shifting patterns. The energy pulses were stronger here, flowing in waves that she could feel through the ground. As she stepped carefully, she noticed that the predators were spacing themselves around her, moving ahead and behind in a precise formation. They were guiding her, not by leading or forcing, but by creating a rhythm she had to follow. One wrong move, one hesitation, and she could disrupt the delicate balance of the grove. Elara adjusted her pace, matching her movements to the subtle cues of the predators. She mirrored the tilt of their heads, the flow of their limbs, and even the timing of their pauses. Each step became a dialogue without words, a silent communication with creatures who could perceive thought and intent through the faintest vibrations. She felt a thrill of understanding. Humans had survived across countless worlds not because of strength or weapons, but because they could observe, reflect, and adapt. Here, that skill was her only protection and her key to connection. Hours passed as she moved through the crystal corridor. She encountered pools of liquid that shimmered with internal light, and she paused to study them, careful not to disturb the subtle ecosystem. The predators moved around the pools, sometimes circling them, sometimes pausing to observe her reactions. Elara realized that the grove was not merely alive. It was sentient in a way that mirrored the intelligence of its guardians. Every ripple in the liquid, every vibration in the crystals carried meaning. She responded to it instinctively, adjusting her steps and gestures to maintain harmony. As the sun reached its highest point, she arrived at a vast open space where the crystals rose in a perfect circle. The energy here was intense, almost overwhelming. The predators had stopped, forming a ring around her, observing silently. She understood that this was the ultimate test. To move forward, she would have to navigate the open space without armor, without tools, relying solely on her awareness, her patience, and her ability to communicate through presence. She inhaled deeply, feeling the pulses of energy beneath her feet, and began to step forward. Each movement required complete focus. The energy waves from the crystals reacted to her intent, amplifying or softening based on her confidence and calmness. She paused when she sensed hesitation, mirrored the predator's subtle gestures, and let her instincts guide her. Time seemed to slow, the world narrowing to the rhythm of her steps and the quiet presence of the creatures surrounding her. She felt a connection that went beyond sight or sound, a deep, intuitive understanding of the grove and its guardians. Midway through the circle, she noticed a small predator stepping closer than usual. Its movements were tentative but deliberate, as if testing her reaction. Ilara mirrored its gestures, lowering her body slightly and extending her hands in a calm, non-threatening manner. The predator paused, then nodded slowly, a gesture of recognition. It was a breakthrough. She realized that the creatures were not simply observing her, they were communicating, inviting her into a deeper level of connection. Encouraged, Ilara continued, moving with greater confidence. She let the rhythm of the grove guide her, letting the vibrations beneath her feet inform her steps. She noticed patterns in the energy pulses, subtle changes that indicated the presence and attention of the predators. They were no longer just testing her. They were interacting with her, responding to her awareness. The grove itself seemed to acknowledge her progress, the crystals shimmering more brightly as she moved in harmony with the rhythm of life around her. As she reached the center of the circle, the largest crystal in the grove rose before her, its surface reflecting the energy pulses of every creature around. She paused, feeling the resonance of the grove through her entire body. The predators formed a perfect ring around her, their eyes fixed on her with an intensity that was both humbling and affirming. She understood that this was a moment of recognition. She had navigated the grove without fear, without force, and without disrupting the delicate balance of life. She had moved as one with the world, earning the silent respect of its guardians. For several minutes she stood in the center, breathing deeply, feeling the pulses of energy flow through her. The predators remained still, observing, acknowledging her presence. She closed her eyes, letting the vibrations guide her thoughts. Humans had always survived because they could perceive patterns and respond intelligently. Here, on Zyphara, 9, that ability had allowed her to achieve what no other human had managed: to walk unarmed among predators and emerge fully recognized by them. The grove seemed to respond to her presence, light flowing through the crystals in waves that mirrored her movements. She took a step forward, then another, feeling the rhythm of life in every vibration. The predators shifted subtly, creating space and guiding her with silent gestures. She moved with them, her body and mind aligned with the grove. Each motion was deliberate, every pause meaningful, and each breath a conversation with the world around her. Hours passed, and the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the crystalline formations. Ilara reached the far side of the circle, where the predators allowed her to move freely without guiding gestures. She realized she had completed the test. The grove and its guardians had acknowledged her not as a threat, not as an intruder, but as a participant in their world. She felt a surge of understanding and accomplishment. Humans had survived countless challenges through observation, empathy, and adaptability. Here, those same qualities had allowed her to become part of an alien ecosystem in a way few humans could ever achieve. Ilara paused at the edge of the circle, taking in the sight of the grove and the predators around her. The energy pulses continued their steady rhythm, the crystals reflecting light in dazzling patterns. The creatures remained nearby, their eyes watching her with a quiet acknowledgement. She felt no fear, no doubt, only a profound sense of connection. She had learned to communicate without words, to move without weapons, and to survive without force. She had proven the greatest human ability, the capacity to adapt, to understand, and to connect with life in all its forms. As night fell, she set up a small camp at the edge of the grove, careful to minimize her impact on the environment. The predators settled around her, forming a loose circle, their presence both protective and affirming. She lay beneath the glow of the crystals, reflecting on the journey. Humans had always been explorers, adapters, and learners. On Zyphara 9, she had discovered a new dimension of that ability, the power to earn recognition and trust through awareness and presence alone. Ilara drifted into sleep with the soft pulses of energy beneath her feet and the watchful eyes of the predators surrounding her. She understood that the journey was far from over. The grove had more to teach, and the predators had more to reveal. Yet, she felt confident in her ability to navigate the challenges ahead. Humans survived not by dominating their environment, but by learning its patterns, respecting its life, and adapting intelligently. She had proven that today, and the world of Zyphara 9 had recognized it. By the time the twin suns rose again, Ilara was ready to continue her journey. She had faced the ultimate test in the crystalline grove, moving without armor, without weapons, and without fear. The predators had observed her, interacted with her, and ultimately acknowledged her presence. She had earned a place among them, not through dominance or force, but through patience, awareness, and respect. It was a triumph of humanity, a reminder that intelligence and empathy could achieve what power alone never could. As she prepared to leave the grove and explore the deeper reaches of Zyphara 9, she felt a quiet confidence. She had moved from observer to participant, from outsider to recognized presence. Humans had survived in countless worlds because they could see, learn, and adapt. Here, she had demonstrated that same ability, earning the trust of creatures who could perceive weakness and fear in a heartbeat. Zyphara 9 had tested her, and she had passed. Ilara woke to the gentle hum of the grove. The twin suns of Zyphara 9 were just beginning to rise, painting the crystals in soft shades of gold and violet. She stretched lightly, feeling the subtle vibrations that traveled through the ground and resonated in the enormous crystalline formations around her. The predators she had come to know so well were already moving through the grove, their elegant, silent steps a rhythm she instinctively aligned with. They had become more than observers. They were guides, companions, and guardians, quietly acknowledging her presence. She packed her minimal equipment, taking care not to disturb the delicate ecosystem she had come to respect. As she moved through the grove, she noticed how the energy pulses seemed brighter, almost as if the world itself recognized her progress. The predators shifted around her in a silent pattern, creating a path forward. Ilara smiled to herself, realizing that she had passed the greatest test of all. But she had navigated Zyphara 9 without weapons, armor, or fear, and yet she had earned a place among the creatures who could sense every weakness in a heartbeat. The path led her to a high plateau overlooking a wide valley where the crystal formations stretched endlessly in all directions. From this vantage point, she could see subtle patterns in the predators' movements, the way they coordinated without words, and how the pulses of energy flowed through the grove like a living network. It was breathtaking, a world alive with intelligence that extended beyond sight and sound. Humans had explored countless worlds, but few had encountered anything as intricate, as alive, as this. And she understood that her ability to observe, adapt, and align herself with life had made the difference. Ilara descended carefully into the valley. The predators followed, not in a threatening way, but in a silent, protective pattern. Every step she took was deliberate, every movement considered. She noticed smaller creatures darting between the crystals, feeding on the faint energy pulses. She paused to observe them, understanding their role in the ecosystem. Zephyra 9 was not just a planet with predators. It was a fully integrated system of life, each species connected to another through subtle signals and rhythms. Humans, she realized, had a similar ability. They could perceive, reflect, and adapt in ways that allowed them to thrive in countless environments. As she moved through the valley, she began to experiment with her interactions. She mimicked the predator's gestures more deliberately now, tilting her head, pausing, and stepping lightly to match their movements. One of the larger predators approached, its limbs moving with graceful precision. Alara held her position, letting it assess her, and then mirrored its posture. The creature responded with a subtle nod, a silent acknowledgement of her understanding. She felt a thrill of connection, an understanding that communication did not require words or technology. Presence and awareness were enough. Hours passed as she explored the valley, learning from the predators and observing the rhythms of the land. She discovered a small pool where the crystal formations channeled energy into the water, creating soft ripples that seemed to communicate with the creatures around it. One predator dipped a limb into the water, and she observed carefully, noting the changes in the energy pulses. She imitated the gesture, not to touch the water directly, but to align herself with the subtle movement. The predators observed silently, then returned to their own patterns, acknowledging her participation. Alara realized that Zephyra 9's creatures had never encountered a human who could move through their world without aggression, without fear, and without disruption. Most humans arrived with weapons, armor, and technology, trying to dominate or control. She had arrived unarmed, observing, learning, and adapting. And in return, the predators had accepted her, recognizing her intelligence and awareness. She understood now that this recognition was not just about survival. It was about respect, a silent acknowledgement that humans could engage with life in ways no other species could. By midday, she reached a clearing where the largest crystals in the valley rose like towers. The energy pulses here were strong, radiating in waves that she could feel in her bones. The predators formed a loose circle around her, their eyes fixed on her with a quiet intensity. She understood that this was a moment of culmination, a point where the lessons of the past days would crystallize. Humans had survived countless worlds because they could learn, observe, and adapt. Here, she had demonstrated that ability in its purest form, earning the acknowledgement of creatures who could perceive every hesitation, every uncertainty. Alara walked slowly into the center of the circle. The predators watched silently, their movements synchronized in a rhythm she had learned to interpret. She paused, feeling the energy of the crystals beneath her feet. The vibrations were strong, responding to her presence. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, and let the rhythm guide her. Step by step, she moved with the flow, aligning her intentions with the pulses of the grove and the silent gestures of the creatures around her. It was a dance of awareness, patience, and understanding. As she reached the heart of the clearing, the energy pulses seemed to intensify, forming a gentle glow around her. The predators remained still, acknowledging her progress without interference. Alara raised her hands slightly, letting her fingers hover above the ground and the crystal surfaces. She felt a wave of recognition pass through the grove, subtle but undeniable. She had moved through this world without force, without armor, and yet she had been accepted. It was a victory of awareness, of empathy, of human adaptability. The rest of the day passed in quiet observation and connection. Alara moved among the predators, mirroring their movements and responding to the energy pulses around her. She learned to anticipate subtle gestures, to feel the flow of the grove, and to communicate without words. Each interaction reinforced her understanding of life on Zephyra 9. Humans had always survived by understanding patterns and responding intelligently, and here, in the heart of an alien ecosystem, she had proven that principle once again. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the predators settled around her in a protective, yet respectful formation. Alara set up her camp near the center of the valley, letting the glow of the crystals light her surroundings. She reflected on the journey, the lessons learned, the connections made, and the recognition earned. Humans were often underestimated in alien worlds, but her experience had shown that intelligence, patience, and awareness could achieve what weapons and armor never could. Sci-Fi 9 had tested her, and she had met the challenge with respect and understanding. During the night, she watched the crystal formations pulse with energy, reflecting the movements of the predators around her. She felt a deep sense of belonging, as if the grove itself had accepted her as part of its ecosystem. It was not dominance or aggression that had won their acknowledgement, but observation, empathy, and alignment with life itself. Humans had survived across countless worlds because they could adapt, learn, and engage with environments in ways that were subtle but powerful. She had demonstrated that ability fully here. The next morning, she prepared to return to the shuttle that would take her back to the human colonies. The predators followed her to the edge of the valley, moving in silent formation. As she paused to take in the beauty of the crystalline landscape, she realized that she was leaving not just a planet, but a world where humans had proven their worth in a new way. The predators had recognized her without fear, without threat, and without coercion. It was a profound acknowledgement of human capability, intelligence, awareness, and the power to connect with life itself. As she boarded the shuttle, she looked back at the grove, the crystal towers shimmering in the light of the rising suns. The predators remained in formation, their eyes following her until the shuttle lifted off. She felt a sense of pride and gratitude. Humans had survived not by dominating the galaxy, but by observing, learning, and adapting. Sci-Fi 9 had tested her, and she had emerged not as a conqueror, but as a recognized participant in a world of intelligence and wonder. The journey back to the colonies was quiet. Alara recorded her observations, detailing the interactions with the predators, the energy pulses of the crystals, and the ways in which humans could engage with alien ecosystems without force. She knew that her experience would inspire new approaches to exploration. Methods based on awareness, observation, and empathy, rather than armor and weapons. Humanity had always adapted, and now her journey on Sci-Fi 9 provided proof that intelligence and patience could achieve recognition even in the most alien worlds. By the time she reached the human colonies, Alara's story had already begun to circulate among scientists, explorers, and diplomats. They listened with awe as she described the crystalline grove, the patterns of the predators, and the silent acknowledgement of her presence. It was not a tale of violence or conquest, but one of understanding, connection, and human capability. Her experience would influence generations of explorers, a reminder that humans could survive and thrive through awareness, empathy, and adaptability. Alara's journey became legendary. Humans who had relied on weapons and armor reconsidered their approach to exploration, learning that intelligence, observation, and patience could open doors that force could never reach. Sci-Fi 9 remained a world of mystery, but its predators had spoken in their own way, recognizing humanity's ability to move through life with respect and awareness. Alara had proven that even in a world where fear and aggression could determine survival, humans had the power to earn recognition through understanding and connection. And so, the story of Alara Voss spread across the galaxy, a human who had walked unarmed among predators, silent yet fully aware, earning their acknowledgement not through strength but through intelligence, observation, and respect.
Sci-Fi Magnetic
9 had tested her, and she had emerged as proof that humans could adapt, learn, and connect with life in ways that no other species could. Her journey was a testament to humanity itself, resilient, intelligent, and capable of thriving in even the most alien worlds. Humans had survived the stars not because they were the strongest, but because they could perceive, adapt, and connect. Alara Voss had shown the galaxy that truth, and Sci-Fi 9 would remember it long after she had left its crystalline forests behind.